Welcome to the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery.
Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today we're going to take a deep dive into this book, Scrum Mastery, From Good to Great Servant Leadership.
Ooh, very interesting.
Yeah, and we've got a really fascinating mix of material to work with here, forwards, acknowledgments, even some chapter excerpts.
Sounds like we're getting a sneak peek behind the curtain.
I know, right? It really does feel like we're getting a glimpse into what it takes to be a truly great Scrum Master.
Yeah, and from these snippets alone, we can already see how this book goes beyond just like the basic mechanics of Scrum.
Totally. I was going through it earlier, and my notes are just filled with underlines and exclamation points.
Oh, wow.
We're talking leadership team dynamics, even a bit of philosophy woven in.
It's not just like a how-to guide.
No, it's not. It's about a whole mindset shift, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The underlying philosophy that seems to drive this whole book is the idea of servant leadership. Quite a departure from that traditional command and control management style you see in some places.
Right. It's almost like turning the whole leadership pyramid upside down.
Yeah.
So before we get too deep into servant leadership, can we take a step back and think about who this book is really for? Based on these excerpts, it doesn't seem like it's for someone brand new to Scrum.
You're picking up on something really important there. The book seems to be aimed at people who already have some Scrum experience under their belt, but maybe they've hit a plateau,
Right.
or are feeling a bit disillusioned.
Yeah.
Maybe Scrum hasn't quite lived up to its promise in their organization, or they're just ready to level up their game. It's for those who are ready to go from good to great.
I like that. Not settling for good enough, but really aiming for mastery.
Yeah.
Now let's get back to the servant leadership idea. It keeps popping up in the material, and I'm curious to understand how it connects to the role of the Scrum Master.
Yeah, it's a central theme for sure. The book emphasizes that servant leadership is the foundation of great Scrum Mastery. Instead of directing and controlling the Scrum Master, focuses on serving the team's needs, removing obstacles, and fostering an environment where the team can truly thrive.
It sounds like a completely different approach to leadership.
Yeah,
One that's focused on empowerment rather than authority.
exactly. And the book goes even deeper by introducing this really helpful acronym, RETRAINED, to outline the specific qualities of a great Scrum Master.
Ooh, I love a good acronym.
Yeah.
Tell me more about retrained.
All right, so RETRAINED, what does it stand for? Well, let's start with R, which stands for respected.
Okay.
The book really emphasizes that a Scrum Master doesn't have formal authority over the team.
Right.
So earning their respect is crucial. This can involve things like being chosen by the team rather than imposed upon them, demonstrating humility and acting with integrity.
It sounds like building trust is a huge part of this. The team needs to feel confident that their Scrum Master has their best interests at heart.
Absolutely. Next, we have E for enabling. Now, this goes beyond just removing impediments. It's about empowering the team to solve their own problems and ultimately become self-sufficient.
Wait, so the goal is to almost work yourself out of a job.
Yes,
That's a fascinating concept.
precisely. A great Scrum Master is constantly working towards the team's independence. There's this great analogy in the book using the Japanese concept of shuhari.
Okay.
It compares the process to learning martial arts. First, you follow the rules, then you understand them, and eventually you transcend them. The Scrum Master guides the team through these stages.
That's a brilliant way to illustrate it. Okay, so we've got respected and enabling. What about the other qualities in retrain? I'm dying to know what comes next.
Well, the T stands for tactful. The book stresses that being a great Scrum Master isn't just about working with the team, it's about working within the larger organization too.
Right.
A tactful Scrum Master knows how to push for positive changes while still respecting the existing culture. It's about diplomacy and knowing when to push and when to compromise.
That makes a lot of sense. You need to be able to navigate those organizational dynamics and build relationships with stakeholders.
Absolutely. Then we have R again, but this time it stands for resourceful. A resourceful Scrum Master is a creative problem solver thinking outside the box to find innovative solutions.
So it's not about having all the answers, but about knowing how to find them, being adaptable and resourceful.
Exactly. Then we come to A for adaptive. Great Scrum Masters are flexible and adjust their approach based on the unique needs of their team. No two teams are the same, so a one-size-fits-all approach just won't cut it.
Right. It's about being responsive to the team's dynamics and the specific challenges they're facing. This retrained acronym is really insightful. What about the remaining letters?
Let's see, we have I for invoking creativity. This is all about encouraging the team to think outside the box, to come up with innovative solutions, and to find ways to make even the most mundane tasks engaging.
So it's about creating a culture where creativity and innovation are valued and encouraged. What about N?
N stands for nurturing. A great Scrum Master recognizes that a team is made up of individuals, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. It's about fostering a positive and supportive environment where everyone feels valued and can grow and develop.
It sounds like this goes hand in hand with the servant leadership idea we were talking about earlier. It's about creating a culture of support and encouragement rather than one of fear and micromanagement.
You're absolutely right. That brings us to E again, but this time it stands for empathetic. A great Scrum Master is an active listener, paying attention not just to what's being said, but also to what's left unsaid. They're tuned into the team's emotions and dynamics, building strong relationships based on trust and understanding.
It sounds like emotional intelligence is a key skill for Scrum Masters, being able to read the room, so to speak, and understand what's going on beneath the surface.
Precisely. And finally, we have D for disruptive. Now, this might sound counterintuitive, but the book argues that a great Scrum Master isn't afraid to challenge the status quo.
So it's about knowing when to push back against the system, even if it means bending or breaking the rules.
Exactly. It's about advocating for the team and doing what's necessary to help them succeed, even if it means ruffling a few feathers along the way.
Wow. Retrained is packed with so many valuable insights, but I'm curious to see how these qualities actually play out in real-life situations. The book mentions several stories, right? I'd love to hear more about those.
Absolutely. That's where things get really interesting. The book uses stories to illustrate how these retrained qualities come to life in the messy reality of Scrum teams. For instance, there's a story about a Scrum Master named Chris who embodied the principle of enabling so effectively that his team actually reached a point where they no longer needed him.
Wait, so he basically Scrum Mastered himself out of a job.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm definitely going to need to hear more about Chris and his team. But before we dive into those stories, I think we need to take a quick pause.
Sounds good.
We can jump into those fascinating stories after a short break. All right, so we've unpacked this retrained acronym, and we've gotten a pretty good grasp of the qualities that make a Scrum Master truly great.
Right.
But now I'm itching to hear those stories from the book.
Oh, yeah.
They sound like they really bring these concepts to life.
They absolutely do. The stories are like windows into real Scrum teams showing how these qualities play out in the wild, so to speak. You mentioned Chris, the Scrum Master, who worked himself out of a job.
Yeah.
His story is a perfect example of enabling in action.
Tell me more about Chris. What did he do that was so effective?
Well, Chris was laser focused on empowering his team to take ownership. He was constantly asking them, "What do you think? How would you solve this?" Instead of just providing answers. He guided them through challenges, helped them learn from their mistakes, and celebrated their successes.
It sounds like he created a safe space for the team to experiment and grow.
Exactly. And over time, they became so self-sufficient that they no longer needed a Scrum Master to guide them.
Wow.
They had internalized the principles of Scrum and could confidently manage their own process. Chris was incredibly proud of them.
That's a powerful testament to the impact a great Scrum Master can have. It's not about being indispensable. It's about empowering the team to become independent.
Right. And it shows how servant leadership can lead to amazing results. Now, there's another story that really highlights the disruptive aspect of retrained.
Okay.
It's about a Scrum Master named Shelley, who found herself in a tricky situation.
Ooh, conflict. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about Shelley's dilemma.
Well, her team was unhappy with the project management tool that the company had mandated. They found it clunky and inefficient, and they wanted to try a different tool that better suited their workflow.
I can see how that would be frustrating. But she's the Scrum Master. Isn't she supposed to uphold the process?
Right, but she's also supposed to advocate for her team and help them be as effective as possible. So Shelley was caught between a rock and a hard place.
So what did she do? Did she just tell her team to suck it up and use the mandated tool?
No, she was much more resourceful than that. First, she tried to work within the system. She explored getting budget approval for the new tool and even suggested a workaround where the team could use the new tool in their personal time to see if it was really a better fit.
Clever. But I'm guessing those workarounds didn't pan out.
You're right. Ultimately, Shelley decided to take a bolder approach. She basically told her team, "Go ahead and use the new tool. I'll take the heat if anyone asks."
Wow. That's taken disruptive to a whole new level. Did it work?
It did. The team was thrilled, their productivity soared, and when management questioned the rogue tool choice, Shelley was prepared to defend her decision. She explained how the new tool had improved the team's performance and even presented data to back up her claims.
That's amazing. It sounds like she had to have a lot of courage to go against company policy like that. It must have paid off, though.
It definitely did. And it highlights how sometimes being a great Scrum Master means going beyond the rule book to do what's best for the team.
That's an important lesson. I think sometimes we get so caught up in following the rules that we forget about the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And speaking of the bigger picture, the book also emphasizes the importance of communication and addressing those tough conversations that we all tend to avoid.
Ooh, yes, those can be tricky, but so crucial for a healthy team dynamic. Is there a story about that?
There's a story about a Scrum Master named Daryl who noticed that one team member, Avis, was consistently late for the daily Scrum meetings.
Oh, no. That can be so disruptive, especially when everyone is trying to be efficient.
Exactly. And the other team members were clearly getting frustrated, but they were hesitant to call Avis out directly.
I get it. Confrontation can be uncomfortable, especially in a team setting.
Right. So Daryl, being a skilled Scrum Master, decided to bring it up during the retrospective.
Smart move. The retrospective is a safe space for open and honest feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by framing it as a team issue rather than pointing fingers at Avis, he created an environment where everyone felt comfortable sharing their perspectives. It allowed them to set clear expectations around meeting times and hold each other accountable.
That's a great example of how a Scrum Master can facilitate those difficult conversations and help the team navigate those tricky interpersonal dynamics.
Absolutely. Now, the book isn't just about tackling problems. It's also about celebrating successes. There's another story about a team that had a really unfortunate label, the problem team.
Oh, no. That's rough. How did they get saddled with that reputation?
Well, it seemed like they could never catch a break. They were constantly being criticized, their projects were always behind schedule, and morale was at an all-time low.
It sounds like they were stuck in a negative feedback loop. How did their Scrum Master help them turn things around?
Her name was Paris, and she was determined to help this team realize their potential. She noticed that they were constantly being told what they were doing wrong, so she decided to shift the focus to their strengths.
What a great approach. Everyone needs to feel valued and appreciated for what they bring to the table.
Right, so Paris started by publicly acknowledging a time when the team had collaborated exceptionally well to solve a challenging problem. She praised their teamwork and problem-solving skills, which really surprised them.
I bet. They probably weren't used to hearing positive feedback.
Exactly. And it was a real turning point for the team. They started to see themselves in a new light, recognizing their own strengths and capabilities. Paris even helped them create an awesomeness backlog, a list of things they could do to become the best team in the company.
Love that. Turning that negative label into a positive challenge.
Right. And it highlights how a great Scrum Master can help a team shift from a deficit mindset to a growth mindset. It's about believing in their potential and empowering them to reach it.
These stories are so inspiring. They really show how a Scrum Master can make a real difference in a team's success.
They do. And there's another story I think you'll find particularly interesting. It's about a Scrum Master who used a rather unconventional approach to improve team collaboration.
Unconventional. I'm all ears. Tell me more.
This Scrum Master, Diane, was working with a team that was struggling to collaborate effectively. They were talented individuals, but they weren't working together as a cohesive unit.
That's a common challenge, especially in today's world, where remote work and specialized roles can sometimes create silos.
Exactly. So Diane decided to think outside the box. Instead of the usual team-building exercises, she took the team to an improv comedy show.
An improv show? That's brilliant. I've never heard of that being used for team building before.
It might seem unusual, but it was incredibly effective. Improv is all about collaboration, building on each other's ideas in the moment, and embracing spontaneity.
I can see how those skills would be valuable for a Scrum team. Did the team enjoy it?
They loved it. They not only had a great time bonding outside of work, but they even started incorporating improv games into their work routine to improve their communication and collaboration skills.
That's amazing. What a creative way to break down barriers and encourage teamwork. Are there any other stories about Scrum Masters using unconventional techniques?
There's one more I wanted to share with you. It's about a Scrum Master who decided to shake things up during the daily Scrum.
Ooh, those daily Scrums can get a bit routine, can't they? What did the Scrum Master do to mix things up?
Well, this Scrum Master, Aussie, wanted to challenge his team's reliance on him. So one day, he intentionally showed up late to the daily Scrum meeting.
He did what? That's a bold move.
Yeah.
What was his thinking behind that?
He wanted to see if the team could function effectively without him there to guide them. He knew they had all the information they needed to update each other on their progress, but they were so used to him leading the meeting that they'd become a bit passive.
That's an interesting observation. So how did the team react to his
At
absence?
first, they were a bit confused and unsure of what to do. But Ossie had anticipated that, and he'd left a note on the whiteboard with a simple question. Do you really need me here?
Ooh, I like that. It's a subtle way of prompting them to take ownership.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it worked. The team hesitated for a moment. Then someone took the initiative and started sharing their updates. The meeting flowed naturally, and they realized that they didn't need Ossie there to be effective.
That's such a great lesson for Scrum Masters. It's about empowering the team to be self-sufficient, not creating a dependency on yourself.
Right. And sometimes the best way to empower the team is to step back and give them the space to figure things out on their own.
These stories are so insightful. They really bring the concepts of retrain to life and show how a great Scrum Master can have a profound impact on a team.
They do. And the book is full of practical advice and inspiring examples that can help anyone on their journey towards Scrum Mastery. Now, speaking of practical advice, there's another chapter in the book that I think you'll find particularly interesting. It's all about visual management techniques, and it highlights how even a simple tool like a sprint burndown chart can be misused or even abandoned if it's not implemented effectively.
Ooh, visual management. That's a topic I'm always eager to learn more about. What kind of insights does the book offer?
Well, it emphasizes that visual management tools should be more than just static displays. They should be living, breathing representations of the team's progress and challenges.
That makes sense. A visual tool should be engaging and informative, not just another piece of paper on the wall.
Exactly. And the book tells a great story about a Scrum Master named Mirjam, who noticed that her team's sprint burndown chart had become just that, a lifeless artifact that no one really paid attention to.
I've seen that happen before. People lose sight of the purpose and just go through the motions.
Right. So Mirjam decided to shake things up. Instead of forcing them to keep using the same old chart, she challenged the team to come up with a more engaging way to visually track their progress.
I love that. Giving the team the ownership to find a solution that works for them. What did they come up with?
Well, they brainstormed a bunch of creative ideas. Some wanted to build a Lego burn-down chart. Others thought a weather forecast analogy would be a fun way to represent their progress.
Those are fantastic ideas. It takes a special kind of Scrum Master to turn a potentially boring chart into something fun and engaging.
Absolutely. The book highlights how even the most seemingly mundane aspects of Scrum can be transformed into opportunities for creativity and team bonding.
It's all about finding ways to make the process meaningful and engaging for the team.
You got it. And speaking of meaningful and engaging, there's another chapter in the book that dives into the challenges of being a part-time Scrum Master.
Ah, yes, the wearing two hats dilemma. I've heard that can be a recipe for disaster.
It can be.
Yeah.
The book argues that while it might seem practical to have someone juggle Scrum Master duties with other responsibilities, it often leads to both roles being shortchanged.
It's like trying to be in two places at once. You can't give your full attention to either task.
Exactly. The book encourages organizations to recognize the value of a dedicated Scrum Master who can fully focus on supporting the team and driving their success.
I completely agree. It's an investment that pays off in the long run.
It definitely does. Now, we've covered a lot of ground today, from servant leadership to unconventional team-building techniques to the importance of visual management. But there's still one more concept from the book that I think is crucial to understanding what it means to be a truly great Scrum Master. And that's the idea of T-shaped skills.
T-shaped skills. I've heard that term before, but remind me what it means.
It refers to the idea that team members should have both depth and breadth of skills. They have a core area of expertise, the vertical part of the T, but they're also willing and able to contribute in other areas, the horizontal part.
So it's about being a specialist in one area, but also having a broader understanding of the overall process and being able to collaborate effectively with others.
Exactly. The book tells a story about a team called the Geckos who initially struggled with this concept. They were all very talented in their individual areas, but they had a tendency to stick to their defined roles.
I can see how that would happen. People get comfortable in their areas of expertise and might be hesitant to step outside of their comfort zones.
Right. But their Scrum Master, Marcel, helped them see the value in being more cross-functional. She encouraged them to pair up with team members from different disciplines to shadow each other and to learn new skills.
That's a great way to break down those silos and encourage knowledge sharing within the team.
Absolutely. And the results were remarkable. The team became more efficient, more collaborative, and more adaptable to changing requirements.
It sounds like a win-win for everyone involved.
It was. And it highlights how a great Scrum Master can help the team unlock their full potential by fostering a culture of continuous learning and cross-functional collaboration.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've unpacked the retrained acronym, explored some fascinating stories from the book, and delved into some key concepts like visual management and T-shaped skills. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up?
Just this, the journey towards Scrum Mastery is an ongoing process of learning, adapting, and growing, both individually and as a team. Embrace the challenges, celebrate the successes, and never stop striving for excellence.
That's great advice. And remember, it's not about achieving some mythical state of perfection. It's about continuously improving and evolving both as individuals and as a team.
Exactly. So keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep the spirit of Scrum alive in everything you do.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Happy scrumming. Okay, so, we've been talking about all these amazing Scrum Masters and their incredible teams.
Yeah.
But one question keeps popping into my head.
Okay.
What about those times when things don't go quite so smoothly? What about the teams that are struggling to deliver value, or those Scrum Masters who are facing seemingly insurmountable challenges? Does the book address those situations too?
It absolutely does. In fact, there's a whole chapter dedicated to helping Scrum Masters navigate those choppy waters.
Great. I'm all ears. What kind of advice does the book offer?
Well, it starts by acknowledging that not every sprint is going to be a resounding success.
Right.
There will be setbacks, there will be obstacles, and there will be times when the team feels like they're taking one step forward and two steps back. The key is to view these challenges as opportunities for learning and growth.
That's a great perspective. It's easy to get discouraged when things aren't going well, but, if you can reframe those challenges as learning experiences, it can be incredibly empowering.
Exactly. And the book offers some really practical advice on how to do that. For example, it encourages Scrum Masters to create a safe space for the team to openly discuss their challenges and to brainstorm solutions together.
Okay.
It emphasizes the importance of psychological safety, where team members feel comfortable speaking up without fear of judgment or retribution.
That makes a lot of sense. If people are afraid to admit their mistakes or share their concerns, it's going to be really hard to identify and address the root causes of the problems.
Right. And the book also highlights the importance of data-driven decision-making. It encourages Scrum Masters to use metrics and data to track the team's progress, identify areas for improvement, and make informed decisions about how to adjust their approach.
Data is definitely key. But I think it's important to remember that data should be used to inform decisions, not to dictate them. It's still essential to consider the human factors and to be flexible in your approach.
I completely agree. And the book acknowledges that as well.
Yeah.
It stresses the importance of striking a balance between data-driven decision-making and the human element of Scrum.
Yeah.
It encourages Scrum Masters to trust their intuition and to use their judgment to make the best decisions for their team and the organization.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between being data-informed and people-focused.
Exactly. And the book offers a ton of practical tips and techniques to help Scrum Masters find that balance. For example, it suggests using a combination of quantitative and qualitative data to gain a holistic understanding of the team's performance and well-being. It also encourages Scrum Masters to use visual management tools like burn-down charts and impediment boards to make data transparent and accessible to the whole team.
Visual management is so powerful. It can really help to surface issues and facilitate those crucial conversations.
Absolutely. And the book also stresses the importance of continuous improvement.
Right.
It encourages Scrum Masters to embrace the idea of inspect and adapt, not just for the team, but for themselves as well. It suggests regularly reflecting on your own practices, seeking feedback from others, and constantly looking for ways to improve your skills and effectiveness.
That's great advice. It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day grind and forget to prioritize our own professional development. But if we're not constantly learning and growing, we're not going to be very effective in helping our teams do the same.
You're so right. Now, before we wrap up, there's one more story from the book that I think is worth mentioning. It's about a Scrum Master who faced a particularly challenging situation.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, this Scrum Master, his name was Finn, was working with a team that had a real communication problem. They were all very talented and hardworking, but they just couldn't seem to get on the same page. Their updates during the daily Scrum were vague and uninformative, and they often ended up working at cross purposes.
Ooh, that sounds frustrating. I can imagine that would lead to a lot of wasted time and effort.
It definitely did. And Finn was determined to help them improve their communication. He tried all the usual techniques like encouraging them to use more specific language and to focus on the 3 questions of the daily Scrum.
Right.
What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And are there any impediments?
Right.
But nothing seemed to work.
So what did he do? Did he just give up?
Not a chance. Finn was the resourceful guy, and he knew he needed to come up with a more creative solution. So he decided to introduce a little bit of fun into the daily Scrum. He bought a toy bullhorn and dubbed it the bullshit buzzer.
The bullshit buzzer. I love it.
Right. The rule was if anyone gave an update that was too vague, someone else on the team could hit the buzzer. It's all good fun, of course. But it really helped to lighten the mood and encourage people to be more specific in their communication.
That's brilliant. What a great way to address a serious problem with a lighthearted touch.
Exactly. And it worked like a charm. The team started paying more attention to the clarity of their communication, and their daily scrums became much more efficient and productive.
That's such a great example of how a little bit of creativity and humor can go a long way in solving even the toughest challenges.
Absolutely. And it highlights another key quality of a great Scrum Master. They're not afraid to experiment, to try new things, and to find creative solutions that work for their team.
I love that. It's about embracing that spirit of innovation and adaptability that's at the heart of Scrum.
You got it. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Scrum Mastery, what are some key takeaways that you think our listeners should keep in mind?
Well, for me, it's all about embracing the journey of Scrum Mastery. It's not about reaching some mythical state of perfection. It's about continuously learning, adapting, and growing as both individuals and as a team.
I couldn't agree more. And remember, Scrum Mastery is about so much more than just following a set of rules or using the right tools. It's about leadership, empathy, creativity, and above all, it's about believing in the power of your team to achieve amazing things.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. So to all our listeners out there, keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep striving for greatness. And until next time,
happy Scrumming. See you next time on the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Until next time.
see you then.